Hello everyone, good evening, and we hope you're all well. Hello to you too, Chris.
Yeah, I'm here too, thanks.
Great. We hope you all had a great week, and so today we've got another lesson. This is our 9th lesson today, and today's topic is a bit tricky. Well, it's not a bit tricky, but it's something that we're going to have to keep a bit focused on, because due to this misunderstanding in the world, that there's a lot of there are a lot of problems due to misunderstandings in the world, and this is one of them, okay? So we're going to touch on that topic basically today, and the 9th lesson is about a few spiritual definitions that we need to take into consideration.
Oh, that'll be good.
All right. Now, as you know, the books of Kabbalah are only talking about spirituality. They're not really talking about things that pertain to this world, because there's really nothing to talk about in this world, is there? Simply because we see what we see and we feel what we feel according to what we hear, smell, taste, touch, and feel. That's our life, basically. So the Kabbalists don't really want to stick in front of us what we can already see. What they want to talk about is all about spirituality. And spirituality means the attributes of the Creator that we can attain while we're living in this world. And by attaining that attribute, we can actually become like the Creator Himself while living in this world. Okay, which is very, very different to all the religions, isn't it? Because religions really tell us, hey, you can't really do anything here. You just need to die first and hope for the best, I guess. Okay? However, Kabbalists say there's no need to hope for the best when you die, because nothing's going to happen when you die. So, what we need to do is get our foundations right and sort our approach correctly. One of the most important things in this course is to have this book. We're going to read from this book. In fact, I've selected some excerpts already, but it is good to have this book if you can. It will help you out a lot, because in the lesson we don't have the time to read the whole article. So what we're going to do is pick bits and pieces here, and it is your duty and your job, if you want to advance in your study, to take some time to read it. In fact, I'll let you guys in on a little secret. Before I even joined the group, I had read all the articles that were translated to English. So whatever there was in English, I had already finished before I even decided to contact the group. And that was a very good thing, because it gave me all the base and the fundamentals first, and the infrastructure, so when I did come, there were no surprises, and I could actually advance quite quickly. So I really recommend reading and listening to lessons as best you can in the spare time that you have available. The first important thing is to take a look at where the people of Israel come from. And what does this word Israel really mean? Okay. Now, in the fundamentals course, what we want to touch base on is that, first of all, the first Kabbalist in the world was a guy called Adam, right? So you guys all know the story probably. Adam was in the Garden of Eden, and then he met Eve. They had a little bit of a drama and made a little sin, and all of a sudden they got banned from the Garden of Eden and ended up here. And as you can see, this world's not going so well for us after all. And it hasn't been going well at all since Adam, okay? Simply because he is not like what the story says in the holy books, right? What it's really talking about here is how a person has discovered the attribute of the Creator. And while discovering that attribute of the Creator, called bestowal, he manages to advance in a deeper and a higher understanding of the whole of reality. So the whole science of Kabbalah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, starts with a person called Adam, who was just like us. Okay, so forget the heaven and the Garden of Eden story for a moment. Adam was a guy like us who one day thought to himself, well, what's the meaning of it all? Because he's probably looking at life and thinking, wow, it's a really hard life. We have to work all day to make sure the crops grow. We have to store them to make sure we don't go hungry in the cold in the winter. And then, life isn't very long in those days either. Then, people in the ages of 30, 40, whatever, just end up dead. So, from the purity of his question, from the purity of his soul, as the Kabbalists say, he asked the question, well, what is the meaning of our life? Why are we living? And that question was enough for him to reveal spirituality. And ever since Adam, what really happened was that every Kabbalist taught the next generation. This is how the wisdom actually spread. And there's a reason behind that. And the reason behind that is that once you advance in spirituality, you begin to discover that everybody else around you are actually you. And they're parts of you. They're parts of your soul, as they say. However, when we're living in this world, we don't really feel like other people being our soul. We think, well, others and me. Okay? So, as a person discovers spirituality, excuse me, what he begins to see and recognize is that the whole of creation, called the desire to receive, is actually a perception of reality that a person feels inside himself, and that everything that he feels on the outside are actually his attributes and feelings and thoughts and intentions inside himself. So what does he have to do then? If he revealed such a situation in life, what does one have to do? Well, if I'm looking at life and I'm thinking the whole of reality is kind of actually me, and the Creator is using the whole of reality to show me actually what I am and who I am, then only there's just one option, isn't there? To fix every fault I can see. But how to fix it? And that's called spirituality, because that's the thing we need to learn from the Creator ourselves. So from Adam came the new generation of Kabbalists, which started off with his family. And then the story goes off and talks about Noah and his family and relatives, until a very special guy in the times of Babylon. And he came along, and his name was Abraham. Now, Abraham, before he discovered spirituality, the purpose of life, and the one acting force upon the whole of reality, he and his father, actually, his father and himself, were actually wise people of Babylon. They were actually wise men, kind of like the clergy of the old days, okay? And people respected them because they used to actually make all kinds of idols from wood and stones and rocks and sell them as well. Kind of like, what people sell today as holy icons, anything from red strings to holy water or statues or whatever. And people thought it was really holy, and people thought and believed that these idols really held some kind of power. So one day Abraham began to reveal and discover that none of these idols and all kinds of charms and amulets have actually no force in them at all. And he discovered that there was actually one force in the whole of reality. He actually discovered what Adam and Noah and all that generation had discovered before. And until Abraham, there were many Kabbalists as well. So Abraham, having discovered that there was one force in the whole of reality governing everything, he immediately saw how fake all these things that they were believing in were. So he basically broke them all. And he decided to teach people. And when Abraham started to teach people, and because he was known as a wise man, people listened to him. So in Babylon, he began to teach people. And he began to teach people in his tent. And it's a very famous story as well, that he used to sit in front of his tent and he used to explain to people how there was one force in the whole of reality that governed everything. And from all the people who were living in Babylon at that time, because Babylon was like a, big city. It was a very cosmopolitan area. So all the people in Babylon were kind of like going back and forth and walking around on the streets, and Abraham kind of managed to explain to a few people what it was all about. And this notion that he explained to people about the Creator and that one force was actually governing the whole of reality kind of settled inside some of the people who were living in Babylon. And that group of Babylonian people were called members of the house of Abraham. And what they did afterwards was basically Abraham and Nimrod had a bit of a fallout. So Abraham gathered his students, or the people that gathered around him who were interested in this method about perceiving reality and discovering the truth behind everything.
Wait, who's Nimrod?
Nimrod was the king of Babylon at that time. All right, if you don't know, you should actually read it. It's a very interesting story. So Nimrod and Abraham had a bit of an argument, and Nimrod said, "Listen, I will kill you if you don't bugger off." So Abraham had to kind of leave, and he took his people and he left, and the story goes as he left for the land of Canaan. Okay, so the Creator told him that I've got some promised land for you, so take your people out of Babylon and let's go. So they set out on this trip. Now the important concept that you guys need to understand here, that we all need to know and understand, that the people that Abraham left Babylon with were a group of Babylonians. In fact, Abraham was also a Babylonian. They were all Babylonians. The difference between them and the other Babylonians was quite simple. It's kind of like the difference between you and the rest of humanity right now. They all had a dot in the heart. And the other Babylonians didn't have a dot in the heart. So Abraham kind of thought, well, okay, let's just go. Let's go and settle in a place where we can all be together. So that's what they did. And that's kind of you as well now. All right? So a person whose dot in the heart has awakened now becomes attracted also to this wisdom, because this kind of feels right for us. And a person studies where his heart feels comfortable. So we study. Sometimes we don't understand anything, but we feel like, what? There's something in this for me. So we start studying, and this is exactly how they started studying as well. And throughout their journey and trip towards the land of Canaan, also now known as the land of Israel, what they did was they were studying along the way. So they had a lot of adventures along the way and so on. But as they developed in spirituality, and because they now separated themselves from the other Babylonians, what happened was that they said, well, you know what? Although we're all Babylonians, we have a different intention in our life. We have a different direction in our life. Our purpose of life is completely different to those people who are living in Babylon, who were once our brethren. So they thought about, well, then who are we? So Abraham came up with the word Israel. Okay? Now this is a very special word, Israel. Okay? So Abraham called that group of Babylonians who left with him, and once they left Babylon, they started to call themselves the people of Israel. And this is where the word Israel comes from. And it comes from two words, actually. Okay? It comes from the word Yashar and El. Now, Yashar means straight or towards. Okay, let's say straight. And El means God. Okay? So Israel means straight towards the Creator. The reason they called themselves that was, well, that's what they wanted to attain. So they gave themselves a name according to the intention they gave the purpose of their life. And that's where the name Israel comes from. So now we're talking about a group of people who were Babylonians. And when Abraham started to teach them the wisdom of Kabbalah, the perception of truth and reality, those who had dots in the heart that had awoken came to Abraham, and they stuck with him and they studied with him, and afterwards they left Babylon and they started calling themselves Israel. And this is how the people of Israel were born. And this is way before the land of Israel, way before the country of Israel, and way before the identity cards we have now today calling us Israelis. Okay? So this is all way before. So Israel has a spiritual meaning. Israel means a person who has a dot in the heart and who has directed himself to the Creator. Now, directing oneself to the Creator means that I want to attain the attribute of bestowal and love just like the Creator. So I want to bestow and love and be just like the Creator in this attribute. And if I am such a person, then my name, your name, Chris's name, everybody's name is called Israel. And so all of us are called who? People of Israel. And that's what it means in spirituality. And that's what we're focusing on. So, when we're studying Kabbalah, what you need to know from now on is when we mention the name Israel, you're talking about a person who has a dot in the heart and who has directed himself through the study of Kabbalah to attain the attributes of the Creator, which are love and bestowal. We're not talking about the country. We're not talking about people who have a national identity card with Israeli written on it. Okay, I've got one too, Chris has got one too. We all have them here, okay? But that's not the guy we're talking about. We're talking about a very specific group of people who came upon taking that definition from Abraham onwards. And only them are called the people of Israel, or a group of Kabbalah students who want to attain the attribute of the Creator, which is once again love, and the act of loving is bestowal. Full stop. Now up to here, I gave you a bit of a wrap, simply because we have to introduce the topic and where it's coming from. Okay? So you need to understand that this whole concept of spirituality and everything the Kabbalists are writing in their books touch a spiritual aspect and are not related to matters of this world. Okay, so as it says in Midrash Tnaim Ledvarim in part 14, there's a little quote. It says, Israel is the virtue of the Creator. It was said to be His chosen people. So only those with the virtue of attaining the Creator are called His people. And that's all. Okay? Now up to here, are there any questions regarding this specific definition? Because this is very, very important for all of us to understand so that we don't get confused along the way. Any dramas there, Chris?
We don't have any questions specifically about that. We had some questions from the beginning, but I did want to mention that this book, Hezi, if you have the book here on my screen, I don't know if you can get it. It's called Self-Interest versus Altruism in the Global Era. Beautiful. Yeah, so that book, it talks a little bit about, actually mainly, it's based on the fact that we're coming from self-interest to altruism in our world. But it starts off, half of the book is talking about Abraham and what he noticed, how everything was very self-interest between the people. Everything was starting to be very egoistic, and it wasn't working, which is why he started looking for kind of what's going on here. Why aren't things working the way they used to be? People aren't really understanding each other. So that book, in a very light language and a very entertaining read, kind of helps you understand a little bit about what Lulu spoke about earlier. So it's a good book if you have time to read it, if you want to buy it. We also have the ebook online as well.
All right, yeah, any book of ours is definitely worth reading to get you through these matters much faster. Okay, so let's read a little bit, and then we'll keep on touching this topic until it really settles inside of us. Okay, so let's read. We're going to read from this book, Kabbalah for the Student. It's from the Introduction to the Book of Zohar by Rav Ashlag, Yehuda Ashlag, Baal Sulam. And we're going to read from page 142.
And if you guys can put that in the chat, where we're reading from in the page.
All right, so our root, okay, the authentic definition of the people of Israel is a spiritual root. Okay, that's why we are called it. Us who start studying and who have the dot in the heart which is directed towards the Creator. They're called the people of Israel. So it's a spiritual root. So let's read. Bear in mind that in everything there is internality and externality. In the world in general, Israel, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are considered the internality of the world, and the 70 nations are considered the externality of the world. Also, there is internality within Israel themselves, which are the wholehearted workers of the Creator. And there is externality, those who do not devote themselves to the work of the Creator. Among the nations of the world, there is internality as well, which are the righteous of the nations of the world, and there is externality, which are the rude and the harmful among them. Additionally, among the servants of the Creator, among the children of Israel, there is internality, being those rewarded with comprehension of the soul of the internality of the Torah and its secrets, and externality, who merely observe the practical part of the Torah. Also, there is internality in every person from Israel, the Israel within, which is the point in the heart, and externality, which is the inner nations of the world, the body itself. But when the inner nations of the world in that person are considered proselytes, since by cleaving to the internality they become like proselytes from among the nations of the world that came and cleaved to the whole of Israel. All right? So, there are a few things we need to draw attention to here. Seemingly, he might be looking like, for a person who's reading it on the outside, or a person who's not really studying with this, that he might be thinking about the people of Israel as some group of people or who live in Israel or who are Jews or whatever. This is what we need to understand here. It's very important. First of all, we need to touch base a little bit on the perception of reality here. According to the perception of reality, which we should actually touch base on sometimes. Did you guys go over it when I wasn't here in October?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't think we. I don't.
You don't think?
Maybe we did with Leo. I think.
Perception of reality.
You
guys tell me if you guys did the perception of reality or not? Now, the whole of reality is felt inside a person, which is you, or me, or Chris, or Jonathan, or Hezi in there, doesn't matter. When a person looks at the world, he sees everything through his 5 senses, but he sees everything and feels everything and has thoughts and intentions and sensations all within himself. Okay, so I don't feel like I feel good or bad out there somewhere. I feel good or bad in here, right? So the whole of reality, when it comes to the perception of reality, is all felt inside me. This is why we draw ourselves all the time as a vessel of reception, which means that all my thoughts, let me just do this a bit better, that all my thoughts, feelings, intentions, everything that I am going through are felt in me. So, inside of me, therefore, okay, according to what we just read, therefore, inside of me, there's a dot in the heart called Israel. Okay? Straight to the Creator, as you know, Yashar El. And on top of that, I have a bunch of other desires which are seemingly close to my dot in the heart, and I can get these desires to kind of correct themselves because they're close to my dot in the heart and they want to cling on to my dot in the heart. They want to be a part of this process. Right? So some of my desires basically agree with spirituality. Okay? So that's what he's talking about. He's saying that some of those people, some of those desires that are in me are called proselytes. Okay? So this is the Israel in me. And here we have some proselytes.
Yes, we did study perception of reality.
You did great. Okay? So here, why am I getting this wrong? Here we go. Okay, so in red, what do we have? We have proselytes. Basically, proselytes means, okay, desires are in me, proselytes. Okay, these are desires that are in me, but I feel that I can correct them. So we're not talking about a proselyte like I'm a prophet and I've got people around me and they're my proselytes. Not at all. I'm talking about a person who is studying Kabbalah with the group, with his teacher and the books, and inside that environment he has the dot in the heart which is directed towards bestowal, and as he's studying he now begins to discover inside himself those desires that he feels he can add to his spirituality. And then, all right, because they're clinging on to the internality. So Israel is a person's internality. Okay? My internality. It's not a country. It's not a group of people. Internality. It's my internality. And proselytes are my desires that I can connect to my internality. My eagerness or my aspiration for bestowal. And then he's saying, listen, there's also some naughty desires in you which they really don't want spirituality at all. And whether they, in that person are considered proselytes, okay, they're proselytes, and they became like proselytes, okay, that can cleave to the, okay, so here let me just read that little end bit again. So here we have what? Also, there is internality in every person from Israel, which is the point in the heart, and externality, which is the inner nations of the world, the body itself. When it says the body itself, it's obviously not talking about the protein that I'm living in. It's talking about all my desires. Okay, so all of my desires here, okay, this is the whole of my cleave, the whole of my vessel, The whole of this is called body, all my vessel. Okay, it's not talking about my meat and flesh. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. And inside here, I also have some desires that are called evil. Okay, here they are. Among the nations of the world, there's internality as well, which is the righteous of the nations of the world. So this is called the righteous. Okay, so this part is called the righteous of the nations of the world. Once again, these are all in me. Okay, my desires, the nations of the world. Why are they righteous? Because they're clinging on to my dot in the heart, and that is the only holy thing I have. Okay? And then there's externality, which are the rude and the harmful among them. Ooh. So there are in me also very, very naughty desires. And these naughty desires here, they really don't want any spirituality at all. And they're called, what are they called? They're called the nations of the world. Okay? They're called nations of the world. So they're not righteous. They're the raw and the crude and the harmful. Okay? They're called nations of the world. Why are they called the nations of the world? Because they have desires regarding this world. So they're called nations of this world. Desires of this world. All right? That's what they're talking about. Up to here, are you guys okay? Any dramas? Any questions, Chris? Just about this though, okay?
No, not yet. No,
not yet?
Not
Nothing?
about
okay,
that.
Good. Good. I hope it's all sinking in. Let's read a bit more. This is a very important topic. Afterwards, I'm going to come to a very important action that we do in order to advance in spirituality. So these things are very important for us to grasp. So if there's anything really not clear, a little blurry, and you think, oh my God, what is he talking about? Here's a nice time to ask questions. So let's carry on reading, although I did put that sheet at the back. Okay, so there's internality and externality, and we just figured out what they are. Okay, so let's read a bit more. We're going to read from the article Arvut, also here. Okay, the Arvut means mutual guarantee or mutual responsibility. It's another article by Baal Islam, and it's on page 256, and I just have a little excerpt from there. Thus, because of the above necessity, the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation, solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it. Now we have to maybe explain what Arvut means here, but in spirituality, this is what we need to understand. Because in spirituality, there is no one person, there is no person alone. A lot of people, all right, think that we can attain spirituality on our own, and it's me and this world, or it's me and the others. Well, that's not true. It's actually very immature to think that I live on the planet alone while there are 7.5 billion people roaming in it. Okay? Our nature, being egoistic, makes us feel like, oh yeah, I own the world, I can do whatever I want, and well, you know, the others, well, who really cares? It's a very immature way of thinking and living. Because at the end of the day, if we look at reality, the whole of reality has a purpose behind it, and everything in creation has a purpose behind its creation. And therefore, if I need to attain spirituality, it means that everybody on the planet is very important. So, in the world, there are 7.5 billion people. Okay, so I'm just drawing this all like this, just so that you get an idea. This is all 7.5 billion in red. However, the Kabbalists are saying, well, that's all well and good, but there are also a group of people with a dot in the heart. And these people who have a dot in the heart are here. Okay? And they're a minority. Okay, so the whole world is a bunch of people who have, they also have dots in the heart, but they haven't awoken yet. So what can you do? Until it awakens, there's nothing really to talk about, is there? So they're a group of people with dots in the heart who have awoken. And because they have awoken, the Kabbalists are saying, well, these are the guys who have this awakening and this inspiration from an inner impression called Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are actually attributes of spiritual attainment, which we have reshimot from. Reshimot meaning a spiritual sensation or a spiritual beginning or an impression. Okay? So these people who have this, the people with the dots in the heart, are called privileged enough to take the Torah. So this is why it was given to the Israeli nation. So we have a group of people here with dots in the heart. They're called the people of Israel, i.e. all of us. Okay, so you guys in Africa, Europe, me being Turkish, Chris being American, Jonathan in there being South African, Hezi being an Israeli, all of us, right, with all the friends from around the world, are called the people of Israel because we have this inclination. Okay? And they're called the nation of Israel. So specifically, the Torah, meaning, what is the Torah? Attainment of spirituality was given to these people because they had a dot in the heart. They were prepared for it. Okay? This is why we have a history of the people of Israel, of those people who came out of Babylon with Abraham. I'd like to read, but if there are any questions.
Paul wants to know, what's Torah?
Torah means light, meaning attainment of the Creator's action upon me. So, whatever the Creator does upon me, it's called the light. And there are two types of light. Well, there are many types of lights, but let's keep it tight just for this definition. There's the surrounding light, where the Creator is influencing me all the time, but I don't really feel it. That's why it's surrounding. I haven't attained it yet. I haven't grasped it in my perception and understanding. And then there's the inner light, which as I ascend in the rungs of the ladder, going up and up in spirituality, it becomes inner light. Okay, so I begin to attain what the Creator is doing to me, and specifically why He is doing that to me. That's called light as well. So the light is the Creator's influence on me, and as I attain His influence on me and I understand it, they're called degrees of spirituality or the names of the Creator.
But Hartwick wants to know, how do we know which ones are the nations of the world and which ones are the righteous ones?
That will all be revealed as we go up and away. Okay? The important thing here is the initial beginning. So we need to keep it really pragmatic. Okay, we need to be very simple, sound, and solid. So we need to look at ourselves and we need to say, well, you know what? I want to attain this thing called spirituality. And the Kabbalists are explaining to us what it is and how we should study together in a group in order to attain it. So if I agree with that, if my heart feels, yeah, you know what, this is what I want to study, then what we can do is take the recommendations of the Kabbalists, who've written articles for us, they've written the books for us, and study together. Now, as we study together what they wrote about spirituality, what happens is we begin to develop a desire to want to be in those situations that they're talking about. And this desire, this yearning to be in those spiritual states attracts the light. It brings the light closer. Why? Because we have a desire to receive. So the Creator wants to give to us because He's the desire to bestow. So if we want what the Creator wants to give us, which is a higher level of existence, perception, being, then we kind of get what we want, really. And that's the whole trick. So the study should make us want more and more to advance in spirituality. Okay? Any other questions there?
Paradze again wants to know, the story about Abraham, is it something that actually happened, or is it just a parable?
Of course it happened. Everything that happens in this world is a consequence of things that happen in the spiritual worlds. So sure. Now those things happened to Abraham, and those things will happen to us too. They'll happen to us in our generation. So if you look at your life now, the whole world is one big global village, and it's called globalization. And in those days, globalization was what they called Babylon. Okay, so they had really good commerce, technology. All of agriculture was started in Mesopotamia, in Babylon. Right? So we're talking about a very advanced group of people who had very sophisticated ways of irrigation, agriculture, architecture, laws and regulations. They were very organized, right? Very sophisticated. And that was called Babylon. And now if you look at our world, it's kind of Babylon as well. You know, we're trading with each other. We're buying all kinds of goods. Everybody's living everywhere. I mean, look at me. I'm Turkish, Australian, and I live here. Chris is an American, and he lives here. Jonathan's South African. He was in Australia. Actually, me and Johnny were in Australia together, and now he's here. You know, like, people are all over the shop. All right?
They had a good life. They had their garlic, their onions, their steak. What else did they have?
That was Egypt. However, you're right.
They had everything they needed.
They had, exactly. Now,
surplus.
This is actually a very good thing. So everybody kind of feels like they have everything. Okay, they have everything, but they still don't feel, well, some of them don't feel like they have a meaning in their lives. And they're called the people of the house of Abraham. Okay, and those are the guys who had the dot in the heart. So people who have a dot in the heart generally have a good life. It's not like, okay, we're not at the pinnacle of, you know, being rich and famous or anything, but, you know, we look at our life and we think, you know what, it's good enough for me. I'm okay with this life. And once we have this sensation, then we start to wonder, well, why am I living for? Why am I still not, you know, really fulfilled in life? Okay, so that's the situation that we're all going through, and that's what some of the people in Babylon felt. So everything that happens in this world has a root in spirituality. So everything, let's say, let me draw, it's a good question. Okay, so let's say above here is spiritual, and here is corporeal. So everything that there is in spirituality has a corporeal branch. Okay? It's always like that. Same for the people of Israel. They also have branches. Okay? Whatever there is in spirituality, there is in corporeality. Yeah? Anything else there, Chris?
No, keep going.
Okay, so let's read a bit more. We're going to read from the article A Speech for the Completion of the Zohar, again by Baal HaSulam. It's from page 76 in this green book. Okay. We should know that spiritual matters are not like corporeal matters, where giving and receiving come as one. In spirituality, the time of giving and the time of receiving are separate. This is because First, it was given from the Creator to the receiver. And in this giving, he only gives him a chance to receive. So when the Creator gives, I haven't received it yet, even though he gave it. I have a potential to receive what he gave. Okay? It's a very important point when we're advancing in spirituality. Because a lot of people along the way complain. They say, well, I've been studying for years and years and years. Well, where's the spirituality that he's supposed to give me? From the side of the Creator, spirituality is already given to man. So man has to do the correct work in order to get what the Creator already gave to man. Okay? So we don't have much room to complain here except ourselves. However, he has not received a thing yet until he's properly sanctified and purified. And then one is rewarded with receiving it. Thus, it may take a long time between the time of giving and the time of receiving. Accordingly, the saying that this generation has already come to the verse, "For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord," refers only to the giving. Yet, we have not yet come to a state of reception. When we are purified, sanctified, and study and exert in the desired amount, the time of reception will arrive. And the verse, "For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord," will come true in us. Okay, will come true in us. There's a critical ending here. Also, it is known that redemption and the complete attainment are intertwined. The proof is that anyone who's drawn to the secrets of the Torah is also drawn to the land of Israel. This is why we were promised, "For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord." Only at the end of days, during the time of redemption. Okay, full stop. Up to there we're reading. Okay, so the Creator kind of prepared the feast and all the food is ready on the table, but we have to come and get it. We have to come and sit down and eat it in order to get pleasure from that food. However, for us to be able to start eating, we have to learn how to use knives and forks and how to use our napkins and how to eat properly rather than eating like a savage, okay, in front of the Creator. Just like a little allegory, okay? So in order to eat with the King, we have to know how to eat. We have to have some table manners, in other words. And that's what spirituality really is. Spirituality is refining ourselves so that we can become compatible with the Creator, so we can come to that adhesion, we can come to that mutual conversation, understanding, mutual ground and connection with the Creator. Any questions there?
Paradze wants to know, what happens if you don't attain this in your lifetime?
Well, I guess we're going to have to go through that loop again, won't we? There's no other way. It's like me failing a class at university. I have no other choice but to retake the exams or redo the semester with that lesson. What can you do? Okay. However, the semester hasn't really gone to waste, has it? Why? Because the first time I did it, I've actually built myself a bit of a foundation. Now, the second time I do the study and the exam, it's much easier than the first one, isn't it? So, that shouldn't be a worry for us either. What should be a worry for all of us studying Kabbalah is this: am I giving my best? Okay? That should be your worry. Okay? More than the result, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, am I doing the best that I can? This is a good way to measure myself. Am I doing my best? Now you have to be honest with yourself. Am I doing my best to advance in spirituality. Okay? So that's the question we need to ask ourselves. And if you ask yourself that question honestly, then you'll always find a place where you can add more. Okay, oh, I do look a little blurry today. Yeah, any other questions?
He kind of follows up and he says, what can I do to avoid regressing?
Do your best. Okay, do your best and forget the rest.
He also wants to attract other people with other dots in the heart. How can he do that around him?
We will discuss that. Save that question for the end, because we will touch on that. The whole reason that we're actually studying this topic today is to come to the understanding of how important it is to help other people find their way. Okay, once their dots in the heart are awakened. It's very, very important, because any person that has a dot in the heart with an awakening is considered a part of the family. So we have to kind of go and find them out in that desert called this world. Why do we call the world a desert? Well, because it pretty much has no taste, does it? You can run around, do many things, but all the pleasures you get from life, they disappear. It's like trying to fill your I don't know, canter or your cup, which is broken, with water, and it keeps spilling, and you can't just fill yourself.
Like, it's exhausting after a while.
Exactly, and you just get tired of chasing all these worldly desires, which really don't bring you an ongoing pleasure, and then you get old all of a sudden, and then once you get old, you realize you got old, and then all of a sudden, you're dead. Okay? So, and that's what life really is showing us. So we have to be smart about looking at life and evaluating it. Okay? So when we're studying Kabbalah, we look at the situation. Truthfully too. If everything that I want and I get diminishes in time with its pleasure, and I feel like I'm left with nothing except the exertion and the payment I made for it, then it's really no real need to run after anything, is there? There isn't any need to run after anything, simply because our desire to receive is always left empty when it wants to fulfill itself. So what we can do, though, is make sure that we have a normal life. So we're not running around hungry, naked, or homeless. We work in order to make sure we have food and we take care of our family. These things are a necessity. So we need to do those. And on top of that, where we can, we add spirituality all the time. And if I can't add, or if I don't add where I can add, then obviously I'm going to fall behind. Now, when I fall behind, something nasty happens. Well, it's not really nasty. It's help from the Creator, but we call it a little nasty because we don't feel so good about it. Okay, because the Creator has to then poke us in order for Him to bring us to where we should be. Okay, so for example, if I'm 20 years old, I can't run around acting like a 5-year-old, can I? Otherwise, my parents are just going to go crazy and they're going to be yelling at me all the time. Because it's true. If I'm 20, I can't act like a 5-year-old. So if I don't do what I should be doing, then I'm regressing. So the Creator has to kind of, give me a bit of a brushing to make sure I, keep up with the Joneses, as they say. Isn't that right, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Chris is Chris Jones, so it's hard keeping up with you, mate. So I will read a bit more. All right, so let's read a little bit more. We're going to read from the article Arvut once again. Item number 24. Thus, because of the above necessity, the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation, solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it. Because of that, the Israeli nation had been constructed as a sort of gateway by which the sparks of purity would shine upon the whole of the human race the world over. And these sparks multiply daily, like one who gives to the treasurer, until they are filled sufficiently. That is, until they develop to such an extent that they can understand the pleasantness and tranquility that are found in the kernel of love of others. For then they will know how to shift the balance to the right and will place themselves under His burden, which is the Creator, and the scale of sin will be eradicated from the world. And that's from the Arvut. So what he's saying is this: if the whole of reality, if everybody is supposed to attain it, then what we need to do is this. There are a group of people with the dots in the heart here, and he's saying, well, these guys are kind of like a channel. Okay? So as we study Kabbalah, what happens is this. Believe it or not. Okay? What happens is, as we study, the light that we receive or we attain among us here starts to flow to the rest of the world. Okay? And that's the beauty of it all. So we study and we help the rest of the people in the world as well. Just like others helped us. Okay? Just like the Kabbalists. Okay, so all the Kabbalists in the previous generation, all they did were to write us books and articles and so on, so that they could help us. And that's what Kabbalists do. They help other people to attain the purpose of creation, so that they can rise up and elevate themselves from this animate level of existence where people just die off. Okay? So that's what we do. And actually this is our role as the people with the dots in the heart. It's a very important role that we must all play and must take part in. So it's kind of like kids growing up in the family. As they grow up, they take more responsibility, don't they? So as I grow up, I need to make sure that my room is tidy. And if I have baby brothers and sisters, I have to make sure that I keep an eye on them too when the parents are not around, so that they don't hurt themselves. Okay? Because as I grow up, I need to start taking care of the family and taking care of the matters that pertain to the family as well, because I'm a part of the family. So those people who are studying Kabbalah with a dot in the heart and they want to bestow to the Creator need to start by bestowing to other people. And how can we bestow to other people? By bringing them, or trying to bring them, only if they want to, okay, only if they want to study, or if they want help in advancing in their spirituality by studying with us, okay? So we're not running out there and trying to convince anyone. It's not our way. Helping people means people who want to be helped. So don't go run around there with Kabbalah books trying to convince people. It won't work anyway, and they'll beat you up too, rightfully so. Okay? So helping means that I help my friends in the group. That's where we start. Okay? And once we start helping each other in the group, then what happens is the Creator will open other gates where we can help other people.
It's probably good to note that not everyone's going to have to study Kabbalah in the end. We have a special awakening now where people are drawn to the wisdom of Kabbalah, and you can look around and you'll see that how can it be that people aren't, falling over in their chairs for some wisdom like this that just opens up all of the worlds to you and opens up perception of reality. But that's just our role. Just like in a human body, each cell has its own role. The ones who all of a sudden had this inclination to want to and were attracted to this path, That's how it'll be, and not 7.5 billion people on the earth will be studying Kabbalah. That's not how it will happen. But this light that he drew in the diagram here, that just happens simply as a result. We're already all connected. The entire humanity is already connected. So once we do our part, then we become this gateway. We're already this gateway, but then this gateway opens, this valve opens, and people just begin to feel and understand that connection is the source, is the solution to the world's problems. Not because it'll come from Kabbalah, not because they see logically that Kabbalah says so and they feel it, but because they're connected, we've done the work, and it'll simply be awakened and clear in them.
That's right. So for example, people in Bnei Baruch started studying. Okay, they started studying, and then what happened is a group of people started awakening. So we're studying here, this is Bnei Baruch. What happens is you guys start awakening, and then other people will start awakening. And as they awaken, they'll come and they'll take a role according to what's comfortable for them. Okay? So everybody has their specific role, and that's also from spirituality. It's not like a person chooses what he's going to be. It's all from spirituality, because there is root and there is branch. Okay? So I can't be here something completely irrelevant to the root of my soul. And that's also true for everybody, and all the Kabbalists and all you guys as well. So, but the most important thing here is to understand that this topic, this concept of Israel and the people of Israel, are those who have a dot in the heart and who are directing themselves towards the Creator to love and bestow. Okay? And they want to attain the attribute of the Creator. They're called Yashar El, straight to the Creator, be people of Israel. So first of all, make sure you get that right. And that's for us Bnei Baruch, because that's our intention. All of us are studying for that specific goal of attaining the attribute of the Creator while we're living in this world. And just like our teachers say, in order to bestow to the Creator, one must bestow to fellow man, who is consequently right in front of our eyes. Okay, so we can't go wrong there, because the Creator we don't see. A lot of people in the world believe they're doing good things to God, to the Creator, or whatever. Okay, according to what? How can they measure it? They can't measure it, because the Creator is not around. So the Kabbalists are saying what we have to do is a specific way to study and apply this method, so that by studying together in the group, we can start to become close friends. And these close friends will soon develop towards each other brotherly love. And this brotherly love is the stepping stone to attaining the love of the Creator, which means the Creator doesn't need our love. The love of the Creator means that I actually attained His attribute of love. Okay, love of the Creator means that I am attaining the love just like what He has. Okay? Right then. Any other questions?
Sure, definitely. So Paul, actually I think that's closer to Hartwig's question first. We'll take it. And he says, this lesson is making me feel blessed today, but at the same time I feel my ego is growing. Is that problematic?
It's not problematic at all. It's supposed to grow, and it should grow. As we study Kabbalah, okay, this is a very, very good question. Now, as we study Kabbalah, our egoism will continuously grow. Remember, I drew this diagram before, and our ego is constantly growing. It was growing in the still, vegetative, animate, and human levels. And once we get the dot in the heart, our ego does not stop growing. It is still growing. Hello, can we see the diagram? Johnny, Hezi? Thank you, guys. See, when the dot in the heart awakens, okay, here, the ego does not stop growing. It is still growing. So what I have to do now is I have to compensate for that ego with my spiritual advancement. Okay? kind of like, how should I say, kind of like I want to learn a new skill set, and now I have to do the work and learn it. Okay, it's just like at work. They gave me a new responsibility, and I have to learn how to get it done. Okay, and that's very, very important, because some people, when the dot in the heart awakens, they come to the study, and then what happens is they go a little slack. Now, when we get slack, our ego doesn't stop growing, unfortunately. It will always grow regardless of the fact that we study Kabbalah or not. So if I don't study, or if I'm a little slack, what happens is the light I'm supposed to get doesn't reach me. Okay, it just doesn't come. Why? Because I haven't attracted it. So there's a gap. And this gap comes back to me as not such a nice state. Why? It's like with our kids, just like I explained a while ago. If our kids don't behave according to the age that they're supposed to behave, I have to kind of like get a little upset, tell them off, be cross with them, and sort them out, right? Same with the Creator. However, we don't see the Creator, so something bad happens in life, and then I ask myself again, well, why me? Okay, well, why you is because you didn't do your job right. So the manager kind of got ticked off. Same here, guys. Life is very easy when you know how. Just understand that there's a purpose to life which we have to get to. There is no running away from it, unfortunately. Okay? And as we run away from it, if we run away from it, which I hope we don't, okay, we get slapped around by life. This is how it happens. This is how kids grow. There is no escape. These are laws of nature. So I always say, get with the program, step on the gas.
And usually the little sad faces that we get, we can't really advance completely 100% doing the right thing. This is Bo Salam writes about that. It's called the path of the land or path of the earth, which is a little bit this and a little bit that. So you kind of have these two guidelines that show you the middle line and the way that you need to advance. So don't get upset when you start having difficulties in life or misunderstandings on the path. Really, all of it is just like a big parent who's teaching you exactly where you need to face and put your eyes in the right direction. But Paul has a really good question. He says, could it be that we're descendants of Abraham?
Absolutely, we're all descendants because we have a dot in the heart. This is why he's saying that it's inconceivable that the Torah could be given to anybody else. Of course, we'll all discover all that towards the end of the path, when a lot of humanity will see. You see, the 10 tribes of Israel are still missing. Okay, so these guys, who are they? They're all descendants of Abraham, aren't they? And they're all scattered all around the world. And who knows who they are? Who knows where they'll be coming out from? All the nooks and crannies in life they'll be coming out of. So we don't know who they are, but we'll get to discover them as we go along. The important thing for us here is to understand that if we have a dot in the heart, we have that impression of spirituality from before. And now it has awakened, and we have to make sure we grow it. It's like a little plant that we have to grow and bear fruits from.
And we're responsible for it. If you're awakened, then that means that you're responsible, and you're not responsible for anybody else, and no one else is responsible. If they haven't heard of the wisdom of Kabbalah, if they haven't been turned on to advancing in their spiritual life, we can say simply, then the Creator, the nature, isn't expecting it. They're expecting it from you because you're the one that's clogging up the pipeline. So like Lulu always says, get with the program. And the more that you study, the more that you advance, you'll really see that the whole world simply relies and is dependent on you. you specifically, you. And it's very exciting. We've been waiting a long time for Africa and a lot of these small European countries to kind of awaken and get with a program. Of course, you can't speed that up. You really just kind of have to wait, but it just shows you how the ripples are starting to kind of touch all ends of the globe. And it's very exciting, and I'm again, every time I'm happy to be. I'm really excited.
So how many people do we have today?
I think we had about 38 people. It's like 40 now.
40. That's very good. That's very good. And where do we have friends from?
It doesn't really say. I mean, you could go down the list and see, but there's a lot from UK, Zimbabwe. We have also a lot of people don't say where they're from. South Africa, Cape Town, Florida. We have Houston as well. Romania, Ghana. Another Zimbabwe, more UK, Holland.
It's good to write where you're from, because then we can get to know you. And in February we're going to have a big congress here in Israel.
Yeah.
So it would be really good to see you guys if you could pop over, and then you'll meet all the friends that we have from around the world, and all the friends from different groups from around the world will have the ability to come and mix and mingle, and you'll have a really special experience. So if you can make it, just book that on your calendar somewhere.
I believe it's the 21st of February is the first day of the Congress.
So that last week, I think it's the last week of February. See if you can see if you can make it here. It's always good to see who you're studying with and what kind of people are studying Kabbalah and so forth.
And there's really no comparing it to any other Congress in the world. We have a lot of congresses that'll happen maybe in the United States because it's more local and it doesn't cost as much for a plane ticket. But in Africa, it's kind of right down the way a little bit. It's not so bad. It's kind of like flying to Europe. And we already have a lot of confirmations from some of our African students who are going to the Congress.
Lovely.
So
somebody was asking about dissemination, I do believe, and I think it's a good time to answer that question.
How do I attract other people around me? That was Paradzi.
Yeah, Paradzi. First of all, just like I mentioned a few minutes ago, please don't go around telling people about Kabbalah and trying to attract them, by convincing them that this is the
regurgitating everything you've heard,
Exactly. Don't do that. It's really not nice. It's also very demising to other people. What we need to do when we want to help other people is, what you can do is keep a very low profile, and if you have books there in your area, or you have books, spare books or whatever, you can lend them to your friends if they want to read, if they want to, or if they're interested, or you can give books as birthday presents, Christmas presents, all kinds of prezzies. People like those. And also, if anybody's interested in the wisdom of Kabbalah, if people come to you and say, Paradzi, what are you studying? We're seeing some changes in you and it's pretty good. What are you doing? Then you can say, oh my God, guys, I've discovered that there's a website called Kabbalah.info, and they have a really nice education center with some charming guys which you can study Kabbalah with. So that's the kind of thing you can give them. That's a good help, okay? But to really go to people and try to attract them when they're not even asking is actually doing harm to them, and it's also doing harm to you as well. So don't go around, with a loud megaphone screaming around saying, guys, come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, because it's just not good.
You could see that on yourself also, probably. I'm sure that, if someone would have told you maybe a year ago about this, then you wouldn't have been ready for it, then you wouldn't have heard it as well. And so if you're like trying to slam it down their throats, then you're giving them a bad taste, and maybe they would be ready for it in another year, but then you kind of made this sour taste with Kabbalah and the word, and they don't know what it is. So it can hurt, and we've seen that happen a lot as well.
Also, if you want to take role and responsibility in helping other people, what you could do is you can get in touch with the center here at BB, and there are a lot of projects that we do, online, offline, so you can definitely find yourself a place to help with inside the organization where there's a structure and there's a plan and a program, and there are people who manage certain projects, so you can definitely help, that's for sure. But you need to do it in an organized fashion, without giving people the chills.
So we have a couple of questions kind of about this. Mm-hmm. Well, first, Arturo from Miami, and I can relate with this.
Who?
Arturo. He says, what happens in the case of if my wife is a Christian and she only wants to study her religion with me? It's better to study Kabbalah in secret to avoid family contradictions. Yes, it is. It is. If they're interested, then you can always answer. But as far as my experience with that is, it just becomes like a big comparison and maybe a little bit of an argument later on, and that and if it's with your wife, then that could really cause a lot of problems as well. We have some people who maybe they study and their wife doesn't, or vice versa, and it's I can tell you that it's difficult having that situation, but you can manage it as long as you don't do anything abnormal. You know, in Israel, you know, we have a lesson at 2:30, and everyone comes. You wake up at about 2 in the morning. You're here at 3, say, just because that's the most convenient time. And so it sounds like it's not convenient, but it is. And so that causes a lot of conflicts with some of the guys that study it with their wives, say, for example. So you really just need to find what's comfortable for you, but for sure, just try to give her whatever she thinks that she needs from you, and that's it.
First of all, don't slack on your responsibilities for the family, okay? Because as the man in the family, you need to take care of the family. You need to make sure that their necessities are taken care of. And beyond that, okay, you can study Kabbalah. And also you need to be a good example to the members of your family and your wife as well. So she sees that when you're studying Kabbalah, that there is a good development that's going on with you. And that's a good example that you can reflect. So she won't be, she won't be weary, or she won't be unhappy or sad or upset because you're studying Kabbalah, because she'll see good positive changes in you. Okay, so just be mindful about those little details there.
So Tatiana, I'm looking for the banner for the Congress, and I don't know, do we have a banner for it?
I'm not sure if it's out yet.
I'm not sure we have it either. No, we don't have it. But
it'll be out soon.
It'll be on Kabbalah.info eventually, if you have that. If you can go visit that site. Okay, so we have some questions. If you want to do like a RAM session of questions.
Okay, well, we've got 15 minutes, so... No, we're done with the material. I just want to make sure everybody gets the idea of what we're doing and why we're doing and who we are and so on, with the right definitions.
Yeah, and that's important. And then you'll kind of pick it up along the way also where you were mistaken. But as long as you start a little bit... kind of enter into the idea of that what we're reading really doesn't talk about anything physical. Even if it did happen physically or in history, it's not really relevant. So Paradze says, at what stage does all this studying affect the corporeal level?
Look, everything that's happening to you, to us, to all of us in the whole of reality are actions which the Creator determined way before we were all created. Okay? So the whole of creation was already planned out. It was already predetermined in the mind of the Creator before it was all created. What we have to do with our studying is to integrate ourselves to what is really going on. So what we have to do is come to see the truth, as they say. And that is dependent on you. Because then we have to give an effort, and according to that effort, we attain spirituality. And attaining spirituality means living what actually is the truth, instead of me perceiving only 0.00001% of reality. I get to discover the whole of reality, because our life is very limited, as you can imagine here. Not as if you can imagine, it's already very limited, right? Everything you do in your life is very limited. So, what we need to do is to kind of break from these chains and learn to live in the attribute, which is bestowal, which is like outside of our skin, and become free from it. And this depends on a person's efforts. Yeah.
So, Andre from South Africa. So what happens when we die? Or why are we doing it if it comes to nothing anyways?
Well, if you die, it's not that nothing happens, because in nature nothing goes to waste. So worms kind of feed off the protein, okay? But that's irrelevant. What happens here is this. Everything that we go through in life is an accumulation of feelings and thoughts and intentions. Although we might look like a sack of meat, we're not. We're an accumulation of thousands of years of reincarnations, which have actually brought us to this moment where we began to wonder why we're living. So everything that we lived before is not random or irrelevant or had no point or meaning. Quite to the opposite. Everything that happened in the past was just for us to bring, for us to come to this revelation. Ask that question, why we're living. What's the purpose? What's the meaning of it all? So, but beyond now is what's important, because now we have free choice. All right, so that's very important.
So there's a couple of questions, and we'll try to get to the Facebook questions too if we have time by the end. There's no name and there's no place, so they say I understand that there are laws of nature, and and knowing and obeying them can bring fulfillment to a person, but I just want to know the rest of the laws of nature. So what are the laws of nature?
Well, we have to reveal them. There are only two laws: give and take, reception and bestowal. There's nothing else, guys. Within that relationship of give and take, I have to discover my attitude to the Creator. That starts by discovering my attitude to others. Do I want to do something for them? Don't I want to do something? Do I care? Do I really care? All these things that all these impressions will come out inside of us. It will be revealed once we start to study Kabbalah. So all these details, there's only two laws: reception and giving and receiving. So what we just have to do is what to do with all the desires that are popping up inside of us. What are we going to do with them? Are we going to fulfill them for ourselves? Or are we going to bestow with them? That is all. It's really not that difficult.
It's just
a piece of cake.
It's very simple, and then at the end of the day, and that's the thing, is that our mind just tries to make we try to do our own philosophizing about what's happening and the connections and of what happened in my life and this. We're not going to be able to make the connections. The only thing that we can do is what we talk about, inner work, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in an entirely semester devoted to inner work. But the drawings that we saw today really represent what we're capable of doing. If there's a higher power force that's acting on us and we're simply reacting to that, then our work is just between those two things: this force that's acting on me and how do I react to that. And that is the entire wisdom of Kabbalah. So it's very simple, but we've just been so long sleeping, and we just got out of it, kind of. So Nella says, I feel a strong desire for spirituality, so this is related. But I also feel the need for the other four levels, like you drew the thing. What does that mean?
It's good. They don't disappear, okay? The four levels of spirituality, the still, the animate, the still vegetative, animate, and the human level of desires, they come along with us to spirituality. We don't have to delete them, erase them. I can't just stop myself from eating food. I need food, okay? We need food to survive. We need to sleep, we need food, we need a family, we need money in order to get by, okay? We need some kind of respect in society to exist, okay? And we need some kind of knowledge to live as well, because knowledge supports how we are going to sustain ourselves. So all these desires that are still vegetative, animate, and human are necessary. However, there is necessity and there is beyond necessity. Okay, so if I go crazy with desires like beyond necessity, then I kind of drown in them. Okay, so let's say I need, let's say I need $5,000-$6,000 a month to survive. Okay, so I have a good life. I have a normal life with this salary. I have a house. I can take care of the kids. Everybody's okay. It's a normal life, and I carry on with that. If I go beyond and start chasing millions and millions of dollars now, you can understand that the more I chase, the more time I'm going to have to give to that, which is going to steal from personal development, which I need to do. Okay, so you need to make sure you measure your own balance. Okay, only you guys can decide how you want to organize and arrange that. We can't tell you, but there's reasonable and there's unreasonable, and you just have to decide where you want to fit everything into. Yeah.
Sandy from Cape Town says, so do we have a predetermined blueprint?
We do, but you also have a predetermined, well, not predetermined, but you also have a point of free choice. Okay. Yep.
Johnny says, from Johannesburg, he says, is it okay to tell people about these amazing messages, understandings, and so forth without saying it's Kabbalah to activate more of the points in the heart?
Well, look, dissemination is a very tricky business. Okay. It's tricky because sometimes we just want to spill everything and give everything to everyone. And like I said before, it could be harmful to that person. Best way to do is, if you want to help people, okay, go with the framework of B'nai Baruch, where there are responsibilities, there are projects, and so on. So if you're in, where is he?
Johannesburg.
Okay, so in South Africa, we have a group of friends in South Africa. So it's best to, once we finish the semester, it's best to get in touch with them. And once you're in touch with them, you can ask them, guys, what do you do? How can I help? And that's the best way to help. Yeah.
So we had a lot of questions from Facebook, and Johnny always takes them and puts them and sends them to me.
Well done, Johnny.
Yeah, he's very good at that. Thanks. So they're kind of just all over the place, and last time you just kind of went bam, 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 and did it.
Let's do it.
So there's no names or locations, so whoever, if you're listening, then we'll hopefully answer them. So just the first question right here, someone's asking where can they get they're looking for one of the articles, one of Rabash's articles. Guys, if you want any of the source text, you can always go to kabbalah.info/ENG, and it will bring you to the library page, and there you can find all of the sources that we have. That doesn't include the books that we, like certain sources, I mean from Bala Salam or from Rabash, and books that Dr. Lightman wrote. Those you'll get from KabbalahBooks.info, so those are two different places. Okay, so good morning, friends. Can someone explain to me the term two conducts from above downwards and from below upwards? What's referring from below, from above downwards and from below upwards?
What's the full question?
Can someone explain to me the term two conducts from above? I think he took that from one of Bala Salam's articles. It doesn't matter, but I think he's referring. He probably read it somewhere, and he was saying, he gives a long explanation, but there's a lot of the time mentions from above downwards and from below upwards. What is that indicating when you read something like that? He's probably reading Kabbalah for the student.
So it's probably from an article. Look, the conduct of the Creator is good that does good. Okay, so the Creator has an intention to bring us to the good. That's first of all the intention, and then He has the action of doing it. And from below upwards, the created being has the will to receive, and he can use that in order to bestow. So we also have an action with an intention to bestow. So that the two conducts of the Creator matches the two conducts of the creature.
Who is my neighbor outside of a group?
Outside of your group, your neighbor is your neighbor. Okay, let's say you live at 2 Downing Street. Number 10 across the road is the Prime Minister in London, and he's your neighbor, but he's just your neighbor. Okay? Love thy neighbor as thyself is limited to the group because we have a mutual understanding of reciprocal love. if we don't have reciprocal love and we don't have that understanding in any way in the study, then we can't really call that person a neighbor simply because he's not integrated into that. He'll just suck your blood if you keep treating him nicely.
Right, and we need a common point.
Exactly, so love needs to be mutual. Yeah.
Do human souls rest in perfect peace?
No, we don't have a soul, guys. We'll touch that point later. Sorry to break it to you at the end of the lesson. Unfortunately, we don't have a soul yet, but I've got some good news. We will have one in the future. But it's all up to us. Okay? None of us have a soul, but we have a potential to build one while living here. Yeah.
So basically, I can't find the meaning of life outside of a group?
You won't be able to, because outside of the group, the meaning of life is very simple. Food, sex, family, money, honor, knowledge. That's all. If you had found meaning in those things in the outside world, you wouldn't have been here anyway. Mm-hmm.
So I think you already answered. Does love of others refer to people outside of a group? No. Does bestowing have any connection with my profession, with what I'm doing for a living in my life?
Well, since you are doing something for your life, I'm sure it's for a good reason. So I'm sure there'll be a way to... Look, even if you don't do anything according to your profession in bestowal, okay, all of us, everybody in humanity, has a talent which he or she can bestow with. So don't worry, even if it's not your profession, there's something in you which you can bestow with to the public. Yeah.
Which is correct. God created man in his own image, or man created God in his own mind?
Unfortunately, we didn't. Well, actually, fortunately, we didn't create God, because otherwise it would have been a real mess. So this is the situation. There is the Creator, which is God, who created the created being, which is us. Okay? Yeah.
What kind of action satisfies the Creator?
The action where we try to grow up in order to be like Him. Like kids growing up in a family. The kids are trying to grow up. They're trying to do new things to learn, and the parents love it. That's what happens. Yeah.
How do you calm your thoughts?
You don't need to calm your thoughts. You don't need to calm your thoughts. I would get into a routine study. I would build myself a nice framework and start studying in that framework. But you don't need to worry about calming your thoughts or anything like that. Yeah.
When we talk about desire, what kind of desire are we talking about?
Anything that pops up in you.
It's egoistic, right?
Absolutely, until we learn to bestow, yes.
That's also, Paul, you asked, what is purifying? You could say that purifying is taking your egoistic desire and making it in order to bestow, which is another one. In order to bestow, I must have a correct desire?
No, in order to bestow, you must have a correct intention. We are not in control of our desires. This is why desires pop up inside of you, just like one of our friends said, desires will just pop up. How I use those desires, that's up to me. And that is called intention.
So lastly, Nella from Serbia says, I really care for others, but it seems like I'm failing in bestowing. Is it my fault that I'm doing things instead of for them? For the people?
For who is the question. If you're talking about family and friends, you should treat them like you used to treat them before you came to Kabbalah. They're family and friends, they're close to you, and of course we help them out. Okay? However, bestowing really doesn't start until spirituality starts to a person. So bestowal at our level, let's say, when you came to study Kabbalah, is helping your friends develop in spirituality. Why is that called a help? Because it's towards the purpose of creation. I don't want them to die and suffer in this world for another reincarnation. I want to help them get a move on. All right, so I want to make sure my friends start advancing in spirituality. That's called help. Okay, but they're with me in the group. This is why I don't run around and start screaming about Kabbalah out on the streets. This is why love thy neighbor as thyself, brotherly love, and all these kind of things, all these words that we use here to kind of describe our situation is just between us. Just like in family, right? There's family, you have family, right, in Serbia, and then there are people who are not your family. It's the same in spirituality. There are people who study spirituality with me, and there are those who don't. Now, the ones who don't, we don't go out and treat them bad. No, we just treat them like normally, like being a good citizen in life, okay? But the people in the group are those I need to care about so they can advance in spirituality because the Creator awoken them. Okay, so the Creator gave them an awakening. So I have to help them out here.
And there's nothing I can do. There's no good I can do other than connecting with my friends in the group. Otherwise, I'm not allowing this, what we learned about today, Torah or light or revelation of the Creator. He's the one that does everything. I can't go march on the street and bring all these people. I'm not capable of doing that. I'm just a little egoistic point in the heart. That's what we'll continue learning over and over, is that I'm not the one that does any correction. It's only from above. I just have to ask for it. That's all. We don't have any time.
Great. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. It's always a privilege to be with you. I'm really glad to be back. Tuesdays are really special. I'm really happy to be with you guys in Africa and Europe as well. It's a real privilege, and I hope we'll have many years together. Hopefully we'll see you guys on Tuesday next time, and we'll have another important lesson. These are really good stepping stones for us to advance. In the interim though, just like I did mention in the lesson, if you can read as much as you can in your spare time, right? Don't steal from your job or from your other responsibilities. In your spare time, if you can read as much as you can from the website and the books, it'll really help you out. So, from me and Mr. Jones, have a great evening.
Thanks.
All the best.
Bye.
Hezi, are you guys?
Good morning, Hezi. Oh God, they're both passed out, aren't they?
Okay. Have a good night.